What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, good people? It is a special episode of Leadership State of Mind. So, Tony and I, about a few months ago, decided to collaborate on a small, very actionable book. We formed Leadership State of Mind, because our collective personalities, how we grew up, how we see the world, a lot of that is kind of seen through the lens of hip hop. That's why you see the background, you see the font. Leadership State of Mind kind of takes you to that Nas aspect, right? But one of the things that was also unique in this was that one of our favorite artists, Biggie, has a song, the 10 Crack Commandments, and we're kind of listening to it in the background. It's like, man, what would be dope if there were the 10 leadership commandments, and in kind of the same kind of energy, and being able to provide what we have gathered over 50 years in leadership as what we think are the pillars of leadership. And we collaborated, we put this thing in a document, and now it's a free download. You can go directly to our site, and we're going to make sure you have access to that at the bottom of this in our bio, but you can go get that. And the first one, the first rule, first commandment, if you will, is called communicate intentions clearly. You want to break it down for him, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, in leadership, as we get into these roles, one of the most important things we have to do is to effectively communicate what it is that our expectations are. Be able to explain what it is that we are trying to get out of this situation. And so if you're stepping in this leadership role for the first time, the things you got to think about is how are you going to effectively communicate what it is that you're trying to accomplish? And so, in the beginning, it talks about crafting a clear vision. And so when I talk about vision, when I talk about the biggest takeaway is what are the pillars that you stand on? What is the philosophy that you as an organization believe in? What are your non-negotiables? What are those things that are going to define your division, your department, your command, your organization, your culture, all those things? And so if you don't know what it is that you stand on and what principle it is that is important to you, how can you possibly point your team in the right direction? So step one,
Absolutely.
Clear vision, right? And then,
Absolutely.
and then as we continue to walk through that, the vision has to be clearly communicated. So we do that through a lot of different means, right? Through face-to-face communications, through one-on-ones, through meetings, through emails, just continuing to talk the message. And so, you have this vision in your head, you communicate it properly, and then I think you start to build some momentum where people understand what it is that you care about and what matters to you.
Absolutely. And as you get that refined, as you get that vision refined, you know how you want to communicate it. You have to make sure that you're considering every person that you're delivering that message to. You have to communicate on different wavelengths. So you have to be able to break it down because in your head, you understand it, but you cannot assume that the people that you're delivering this message to understands it. So you have to take what you have in your head, make it make sense, for everybody, right? So because we are all communicating on different wavelengths. Last thing that you want to do is communicate on FM when the station is on AM, right? So everything has to be considered in how you break this down and deliver that message.
Yep. Yeah, man. So, and then as you continue to walk through that, the next thing we're talking about is, just making sure that not only, so now that you have the bigger picture of like what it is that you stand on, now what is everyone's roles and jobs to be able to get to that end state, right? If your people don't know what they do, what would you say you do here, Bob? If people don't if people don't know what they do every day and what their purpose is and what their why is, you're never going to reach the full potential of that team. And so as you show up to a new organization or you're starting a business from scratch or you show up to a new command, what are you going to do to make sure that everyone understands their defined roles and make sure that you can articulate to them what it is that you expect of them? The example that I always think about is, as I walked into my my Cobb tour when I was the chief of boat of a submarine, my chief's quarters all had a vision of what it was to be a chief petty officer, but I wanted to make sure that that was aligned and clear. And so, not in the military, your managers, your generals out there, right? Those dudes that are managing those different departments, what is it that their role consists of, and what is it that you need from them every day? And you need to be able to define that and articulate that in a way that you're not disappointed, right? Because if you have a vision of what those expectations should be and what they should be doing, and it is not aligned with what their mental model is of it, you need to create the right mental model and let them know what it is that you anticipate them to do on a daily basis for you.
Absolutely. And then as you're considering all of these things, never forget, you're not doing this by yourself. This is not a situation where you're kind of doing this, in a vacuum, right? Because if you're doing it in a vacuum, you're just creating an echo chamber and you're just listening to yourself and you're not taking any input. You're not taking any feedback that's going to feed the masses, right? So you have to build an environment where open dialogue is definitely encouraged, right? Creating a safe space. We talk about psychological safety a lot here at Leadership State of Mind, but making it clear that all opinions, all values, all constructive feedback is welcome as these things are being communicated. This is a two-way situation here, right? There's transmit and there's receive, and there's retransmit and re-receive. You may have to find yourself in a situation where you have the assumption you had in your head about, hey, this is really clear. You may have to take that back to the drawing board, redo it, recraft it, and put it in a way that everybody understands it and can grab onto it, right? But you can only do that if you have built a situation where people are able to feed that back to you.
I love it. Anytime we bring up psychological safety, I'm in a good mood. I think just because it's so important, right? Like if you're trying to build this structure and build this culture and people don't feel safe to give you feedback, man, like you can never get it to where you want it to be. So man, that's
Absolutely.
a great point. And then, I think once you've kind of created that environment and done all those things, the next thing is the follow-up process, man. Like, what are you doing to make sure that you engage with the people and the tasks that you're giving them, the expectations on how you want them to run their department, their division, their organization, they're part of the company, that they are aligned in executing the things that you put out to them. So if you don't have a process to make sure that you're following up with them, to make sure that it's something that the things are getting done, then like, what are you really doing? You just giving orders with no deadlines, and you're not like, there's just you're in the wild west, right? And we don't want to do that either. So we set those expectations, but then we got to make sure that follow up is clear and that we are making sure that we get the adequate information we need to get to the end state of whatever that assignment or that next task is.
Absolutely. The bottom line with this commandment is that confusion is the root of most conflict. It wastes so much time. You cannot be precise if people are wasting time trying to figure out what it is that you mean. Well, I think he said this. Well, I think she means this. I think this is what was said. And it's kind of he say, she say, back and forth and all this other stuff. And all the noise creates a situation where you cannot be efficient. So that's why we put communication at the top pillar, for these commandments. But here's the deal with this, with this document. There is zero fluff. Yep. We're not giving you theory. We're not giving you a bunch of unrelatable stories. This document is small. It gets to the point. Here's the problem, and here's the solution, and here are the things that we have done, not things that we have heard about, not things that we have seen, but things that we have done and implemented day in and day out to lead effectively. So when you look at this document, trust me, you're going to have all the things necessary contained within a document, to start moving down the right path. Now, it's not the end all to be all, but it's the 70% start, right? It gets you down the path of fostering an environment where communication, is clear, concise, and common, right? So like I said, we're not wasting any time on this one for you. Once you read that document, it's going to be clear, and we give you the tools and things that we've done that work.
Yeah, man. The reason we put it at one is because no matter where you go, no matter what organization you're in, the top thing people are going to say is that there could be better communication. You see
Yep.
it everywhere. You hear it everywhere. No matter how good you are, people always want better communication. And so if we don't start with, if rule number one is not setting expectations and building that foundation to communicate better, then, man, what are we doing? And since we do things different at Leadership State of Mind, we had to make sure we start with what's important and we get the good stuff out there. So, yeah, man, rule number uno. Make sure you set those expectations. Make sure you communicating effectively.
Absolutely. And listen, right here at the bottom of this video is a link that you can go and download this document for free. Like, we're giving our best information away just to help you be the best leader, best version of yourself that you can be. And that, like I said, that's just rule number one. There's 9 more to go, right? So we packed so much dense information within this document to help you, whether you are a brand new leader, just got thrown into the position and you didn't necessarily want to be a leader, or you've been in this game for a minute and you're trying to refine how you lead. You're trying to make sure that you're doing the most right things for your people. This is for you. Go ahead and get your copy right now. Leadership State of Mind, out.